How is mixing lo-fi different from mixing other genres?
Oh, it's so much fun because there's no pressure. You know, it's supposed to sound warm, like gritty and dirty. Really feel that way when I'm mixing it.
You feel dirty when you're mixing it?
I mean, in this lo-fi mixing video, I'm gonna walk you through from start to finish on how to mix a lo-fi track. I'll be walking you through what I'm thinking about, what I'm listening for, and I'm inviting you to follow along with your track or with this track. You'll find both sessions unmixed and mixed right here for free. Mixing is subjective. A lot of the principles I'll be going through in this video can apply to many genres of music. Obviously, we want our music to sound good, balanced, leveled, but lo-fi has some fun characteristics that can lead to some unique mixing decisions and workflows with some cool effects plugins, which I'll get into a bit later. So the first step I always take before mixing any session is color coding it, organizing it, and grouping similar sounds together that I might process later as a group. You can see in this session, all of the different colors, the names, it's really unorganized. I just did it on the fly while I was creating it. When things are organized and grouped together, I can really make fast mixing decisions and make overall broad strokes instead of getting really lost in the session. So now that everything's organized, you can begin to start leveling out your track. I tend to do this as I'm writing just to get the vibe going. So here's what I had. But it's always good to revisit your session to get a fresh perspective. So for this, I'm going to reset everything to 0, and this is what it sounds like. You can hear the melodies really underneath the counter melody. Everything's all jumbled. Let's get right into it and start leveling it out. So the first thing I like to do is choose what element I want to be at the forefront of the mix. Most of the time it's the melody. So what I'll usually do is just have the melody up top and then bring everything down around it. So right away I can hear that cello and the choir need to come down quite a bit. And all you have to do is just use your ears, let it play. It's very loud. So that's starting to sound a bit better. I can hear the melody popping through. And then that snare drum should come down and the drums can come down. So now that I have the melody as the leading element, I can start to mix everything around it and start using automation and panning to really bring this mix to life. Let's listen to what I have so far. So there's the melody. What I was thinking of doing is maybe like bringing the volume in on that melody on the intro because it is a bit loud. Go to Mixer when you have automation open, and go to track volume. I'm just gonna drag this down. So it's gonna slowly fade in as the intro progresses. Let's listen. And then in context. It's still a bit sharp, so what I'm gonna do is grab a filter, the auto filter, and I'm going to automate the frequency knob. So that's going to make the high end slowly fade in. So it's going to sound really distant and then come closer and closer to the listener. You can right click parameters anywhere in Ableton and then go to show automation, or I can select the plugin here and then go to the frequency or the parameter that I want, which is frequency, and then just do the same thing. Nice. So you can see it slowly opening up down here. And then just for some extra spice, I like to kind of change the slope a little bit. Just kind of let it swell in right at the end there. So now I'm gonna start panning things left and right, and that's gonna give me a much wider stereo image, especially with sounds that are similar. If we just go to the synth and keys group, I have like a synth playing the same thing as the piano. I can automate one to the left, and then one to the right, and let's just listen to that together. Hot tip alert! hit that mono button. By collapsing your mix to mono, you're gonna hear where the levels are sitting in your mix a bit more clearly and hear any frequency buildup. In Ableton, you can use that utility plugin, put it on your master channel, and just hit the mono button. So here's without mono. And then with it. So I noticed the snare was a bit loud, I brought it down in mono. And then once I'm done, continue mixing in stereo, but hit that mono button to get a different perspective on your mix. This next part is an area many people have trouble with. It's the kick and the bass, the low end, the mud. It's only two elements that you just have to even out properly, and I'm gonna show you how to do it right now. In lo-fi, the kick and the bass are still super important to fill out correctly if you want that nice warm punch. I'm stealing a rule from the great Ricky Tinez, who said,
I don't want anything under 100 hertz that is not the kick or the bass.
So I'm gonna high pass everything that doesn't need to be there. So I can grab EQ8 and I'm gonna drag it onto every track. And you can see it already loaded with this high pass on it. So I can just play. And I'm just cutting out all of that bass energy that doesn't need to be there. So I've went to every track and I cut everything below 100 hertz except for the kick and the bass. Now I have to make the choice, what can live under 50 hertz? And there can only be one, the kick or the bass. In lo-fi music, usually you have an 808 or a sine bass wave that really lives in the low end, the sub bass. In other genres, it can be switched around, but that's the decision I'm going to make. So what I'm going to do is go to my kick and then carve out those sub frequencies. I'll just solo the kick and the bass. And then maybe I'll just give it a little boost at 100 just for that thump, you know? So here's without the EQ. And then with it. You can hear the separation between the two, and that's the first step to getting that warm punch that I was talking about. There's one more thing you can do to make those two elements glue together really nicely, and that's letting that transient of the kick pop through. And you can do this in a couple of different ways. I like to change the attack time on my bass, so then the initial kick pops through right before the bass comes in. The other way you can do this is with sidechain compression, but I'm gonna use that a bit later. I'm gonna go to my bass, so I can adjust the attack time right here. So let's just listen. You can hear that's too much, so let's drag it back down. I have the attack time set at about 8 milliseconds. So let's listen to it before and after. So here's before. You can kind of hear they're a bit conflicting. So I'm gonna raise it up to around 8. Now it sounds like one cohesive instrument, the kick and the bass. And then in the mix. Those small changes make such a huge difference. Now that the bass instruments are done and everything else is leveled, I can get away with just processing the groups moving forward. If you choose the right samples and they fit well with your arrangement, you shouldn't have to get too surgical on your track. I mean, if you hear something poking out, go fix it. But now you can just kind of like make broad strokes. What I like to do is make some minor EQ adjustments, maybe some saturation, some tape plugins. LANDR Effects is great for this. So I'm gonna start with my synth and pianos group, and I'm gonna drag on LANDR Effects Electric and see what presets might work with this group. What I'm listening for is like, what is gonna make this stand out with the rest of the track, but not be too in your face? So you can hear it kind of popping in there with this preset. That's kind of cool. Nice. I have some acoustic instruments in my counter melody, so I can grab the acoustic plugin and just drag that on. If I use the hi-fi preset, is that against the video? So I have the LANDR Effects acoustic plugin on the counter melody group, which contains two acoustic instruments, the cello and the choir. When I'm doing this, I'm thinking to myself, what is it that's gonna make it stand out in terms of like warmth, brightness, words that I can attach myself to when I'm listening. So if I'm listening to this group, they're just kind of supporting the song. So it's just underneath the melody. So I chose this glue preset, and that kind of brings those two elements together, more cohesive as one instrument. It's just bringing it forward a little bit without impacting the volume, which is really nice. So I went ahead and added some more bus processing to the groups, and as well as some light processing to the master channel. If you want to see all of the changes I made, I put the download link to this session below in the description. Go grab it, check it out. Finally, the part you've been waiting for. Lo-fi effects. There are tons of lo-fi plugins out there. I think I did a video on it. I'll point here just in case, and then you can check it out. I'm gonna bring up the famous RC20 plugin that's known for all of these lo-fi effects. Let's try it right on the master bus. So right now I have some slight noise from like a vinyl effect and some tape saturation. So let's listen to the difference. That's with it off, and then with it on. And then I can mix it in with this magnitude slider. So I've added RC20 to the synth and keys bus, and I'm going to use it to add some wow and flutter to the synth and keys. So you can hear that's way too much. So I'm going to blend it in. And then with the mix, it's just adding that, waviness to the synth and keys that I really like. Another element that you'll hear a ton on Lofi Hip Hop, Chill Hop, all the hops, is sidechain compression. And this adds a pumping effect that gives a bit more groove to the kick and the bass compared to all of the rest of your tracks. What I can do is I can take an element of my track that's really sustained, like the synth and keys, and I can add a sidechain compressor so when the kick hits, it ducks the synth and keys in volume, and it gives the track a bit more groove. You'll hear this like really extreme in electronic music, but we just want to add a subtle groove, or else it'll become really distracting to the listener in this genre. All I have to do is just grab a compressor and put it on the bus, and I'm gonna hit sidechain, and then click kick. So now it's taking the signal from the kick and it's going to activate the compressor when that kick hits. So right here, you'll see that it's triggering the compressor when the kick hits, and you can actually listen to the kick in the compressor, which is cool. So it's just ducking slightly. I'm pretty confident with this mix. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Was it good? Was it bad? Did it help? Before I stamp this with my own seal of approval, what I like to do is upload it to LANDR to hear what a potential master might sound like. Sometimes after LANDR masters my music, it brings out elements that I wouldn't normally hear in the mixing process and highlights those things that maybe wasn't intentional on my end. So then I know maybe I can bring something down or raise something up. So for this master, I'm going to choose balanced and medium for a more neutral sounding master. So here's the master. And here's the session. You can hear that extra polish that LANDR threw on, but what I think I'm hearing is that my bass might still be a bit too loud compared to my session. Now I know I can maybe go into my session, lower my bass a little bit, and then maybe re-upload it to LANDR and check again. So that's it for this one. Let me know if this video helped with your mixing workflow, and if you like my lo-fi track. We'll see you in the next one.